Hi, welcome to AT&T.
Hi, can you tell us more about rollover data?
Yeah, what do we have to do?
Not a thing. If you're a mobile share value customer, your unused plan data automatically rolls over for 1 month. It's our way of saying thanks.
That's so wonderful.
Let's hug.
Oh, wow. And we're hugging. All three of us. Really hugging. Ooh, who smells like bacon?
Introducing AT&T Rollover Data. All mobile share value plans now come with rollover data on the network with the nation's strongest LTE signal. AT&T, mobilizing your world. AT&T reminds you to never text and drive. It can wait.
Switch to AT&T now and get a $200 bill credit when you buy any smartphone, like the Samsung Galaxy S6, for $0 down on AT&T Next.
Rollover data on mobile share value plans expires after 1 month or with any plan change and is used after monthly plan data. Bill credit is a limited time offer. Must port number, activate qualified service, and stay in good standing to get credit in 3 months. $0 down with AT&T Next requires well-qualified credit. Signal strength claim based only on average LTE signal strength for national carriers. Other charges and restrictions apply. See store for details.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome everybody, live.
Yeah.
Under the Man Radio. This is your host Tech, with co-host
NFC Game Boy. What it is, what it do.
and also with our co-correspondent.
Oh, this is Toph, and
Yes,
I'm just eating chicken dumplings and stuff because I was watching Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, back when Eddie was funny, and it just gave me like the vibe to eat chicken and dumplings.
Huh. Shout out to chicken and dumplings. Cornbread is also. Momentarily, we have our guest that we're about to bring in, so he is on the queue waiting to come on in. But we're going to let everybody know this episode is entitled Master-Conn. The reason being is because in a couple of seconds, we're going to bring in our first guest. He is co-host of 105.7 The Fan Show, which is great. Here live in Baltimore, Maryland, CBS. He's our co-host of the Scott Goss Soul Show. We will be bringing in Jeremy Conn in about 1 minute. Also coming up at the top of the hour, we will have former WWE superstar and current superstar of Global Force Wrestling, Chris Mordisky, also better known as Chris Masters. So with all that being said, follow us Under the Mat Radio on Facebook, follow our like page and our group page. Also follow us on YouTube, Under the Mats Radio. Our Instagram account is Under the Mats Radio, all one word. You need to email us for any questions or business inquiries. Please email us at underthematsradio@gmail.com. And everything else falls on Twitter. I'm at Tech_UTMR. NFC Game Boy?
At NFC Game Boy, spelled correctly.
Yes, you make sure you spell it correctly. Before any further ado, we're going to bring in the man himself, the Conn man himself, Mr. Jeremy Conn. Welcome, brother.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, what's going on?
How you feeling, man?
I'm good. Just finished my show and ready to talk to you guys.
Oh, okay. All right. Doing double duty tonight, huh?
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy day here in Baltimore. I mean, we had a mixture of Oriole fans that are ready to jump off the bridge, and we got a couple of Bruce Jenner phone calls, which were interesting, and, everybody's talking football year-round, as it always goes. So, but that was kind of 4 hours of that.
Oh, man. Well, Jeremy, thank you for coming on. Of course, we're here at the show. Foundation is Pro Wrestling, but as we talked off air, we cover all different topics and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I know you, Jeremy, we're big fans of 105.7 The Fan. Of course, I've texted him many a times. Big fan of your co-host, Scott Garcelle and everybody else. If you can, give everybody a quick intro of who you are and, other things you do.
Well, it's kind of weird. My venture in the radio is a lot different than most people because I kind of fell into it. I'll try to give you the abbreviated story as much as I can because I went to college thinking I was going to play basketball and, didn't realize that a 5'10" white guy didn't have much of a shot. But No, I went to school and I could play a little bit. I majored in math and theater, and things didn't quite go my way. I got in a car accident and had to leave school, and started delivering pizzas. And one day I'm playing in a basketball league, and I'm just BSing with the guys in the league, talking sports, and we're riffing back and forth. And I'm telling all these old guys that they're wrong, they got their numbers wrong, this and that. Lo and behold, they said, "Hey, why don't did you ever think about doing sports talk radio?" And I said, "What is that?" They said, "They're guys that talk on the air and they just talk sports." I said, "That sounds stupid." Like I didn't think that made any sense. Why would anyone listen to it? So the next day when I'm delivering pizzas, I pop it on and I was hooked. And I took a shot in the dark and emailed the radio station and said, "Hey, any chance that you guys are looking for interns? I'll come work for free. I'll sweep the floors, whatever you want me to do." And I guess I emailed at just the exact right time. So I started from the bottom. Now I'm here, I guess you could say. Things just kind of worked out. I learned everything you could possibly learn, from engineering to producing to answering phones to, trivial stuff like getting coffee. And every time a radio spot opened up, I was right there, and things just kind of worked out. So I feel like it was meant to be, and hopefully it continues on. So now I do 2 to 6 Monday to Friday in a top 20 market in Baltimore, and talk sports and have fun. And it's kind of cool because they let me be me. I do, some voices, some better than other, and I like to add some humor into the show, so it's not just, hey, so-and-so hit this last night and that. And anybody, you can put two guys together and anybody can talk, but can you be entertaining? And, that's what I try to be. Some like it, some don't, but so far so good. We're doing all right.
Oh, all right. Yes. Me and NSC Game Boy, I'm not sure where George came from, big fans of your show. We got into it by randomly in the car, cutting on the radio, and you and Wyman, I believe you and Wyman had a show together.
One of my favorite shows I've ever done.
Yes.
Yeah, they see what happened was, so our station switched formats. We were an AM station. I worked on an ESPN AM station, but we're owned by CBS. So once CBS decided to do their own sports radio, they dumped all the ESPN stuff, and they actually moved us to FM. Well, that was kind of like I don't know what you want to call it, a bloody Sunday, if you will, because when everybody came in Monday morning, it was like, I don't know, about 60% of our staff was fired. They made all these cuts, changed everything up, and I guess, in my background, the fact that, like I said, I did producing, I did engineering, I did all of it, they actually had me produce a show in the afternoon, and then I would host and produce a show with Ken Wyman at night, and that started Playmakers, which we were just thrown together, and we were two peas in a pod. So I'd make fun of Kenny'd make fun of me for, being hard on my kids, and I'd make fun of him for open mouth kissing his dogs, which he's done on numerous occasions, and I think that's disgusting. So, we talked everything from sports to inappropriate stuff. We had that night crowd that would call in, people that were drunk, people that were just crazy. And Kenny's really good on the fly, and I feel like I am too. Like, if somebody calls in and says something silly, instead of just hanging up on them because it's just weird, have fun with it, Take that phone call and see where you can take it, and that's what we did. And, I really liked it. Management at some point decided to switch things up, and they moved Kenny to mornings, and I was doing nights by myself, and I just continued to do, the same type of show. And lo and behold, the opening happened with Garceau in the afternoon. And in actuality, I've told this story before, I was getting ready to quit radio. I was kind of tired of the night scene. My kids were playing sports. I was interested in coaching them and watching them. And it's a grind. It's not, trust me, we're not digging ditches, but, at the same extent, not seeing your family, I said I could do something 9 to 5 and it'd be better for me. So I thought about leaving radio, and God's honest truth, I went on a job interview the next day at another radio station, thought I was getting the job. I didn't get it, walked into 105.7, and they asked me to fill in with Garceau. It was the Friday that Anquan Bolden was traded to the Ravens. Julius Peppers signs with the Bears. I remember it like it was yesterday. And we just clicked. I filled in because there was nobody to do the show with him. They offered me the job on Monday, man. So the rest is kind of history. But the show I did with Wyman by far was the most fun I've ever had doing radio. Because, I literally enjoyed coming to work laughing because I knew I was going to laugh until I was ready to cry at some of the stuff that was said. So.
Oh, well, that's great, man. Big fans of it. I'm going to turn over to NFC Game Boy.
Okay, well, by you being on FM radio, of course you're bound by a lot of the laws of the FCC, which means that, certain things and words and stuff you can't really say. Us here at Under the Mat Radio, we're not really bound by a lot of
the FCC,
the federal,
whatever you want.
Federal Commission. So my thing is there any story or any type of maybe person, you don't have to say their name, that you can think of, that somebody kind of ruffled your feathers or something that you might want to get off your chest, that you never really couldn't have the chance to say it on the radio or something, but you really wanted to have the chance to. We wanted to give you that opportunity now.
Well, I've told you plenty of times. The one incident that I really had, I've actually told it on the air because I'm not shy. I mean, I tell the truth, and I tell the truth to a fault at times. But, I was out and about. I was working with Amber Theo Harris. We did a show called The A-List, and I was just thrown in kind of like a lackey. She needed someone else to co-host and bounce things off of when things got slow. But she was the star, and we all know that. She's working at NFL Network. And I was hanging out with her, and lo and behold, I met one of her girlfriends or friends at the time, and who knows, we're trying to see where that was going to go. We're hanging out. We're down in Canton, and this is kind of how the story starts. I haven't told all this information before, but we walk into a bar, and lo and behold, there's a bunch of Oriole players there. Mm-hmm. And there was Daniel Cabrera. There was Steve Traxel. Yeah. So this was a while back. Steve Traxel was here. There's one other player I can't remember. And then there was Eric Bedard. And, I'm trying to remember how my man Fight Dog said it. He said, I'm far from a tough guy, or I'm not a tough guy, but I'm far from a punk. Let's just put it that way. So, and my old man always taught me, you respect people that respect you, and if they don't, they have to earn your respect. So you don't show them any respect back. So I was introduced to a couple of the Oriole players, and I don't know if it was because the girl I was with and Eric knew her and things didn't work out that way, but I was introduced to Eric Bedard, and I stuck my hand out to shake his hand, and he looked down and kind of like smiled and turned his back to me. And I said, don't treat me like a bitch, and I told him to turn around. I was going to whoop his ass. And so I start screaming at him in the bar, and Amber grabs me and pulls me back, and I'm just yelling at this guy. I think he's the biggest clown. So, we had words. They separated us. There were no blows thrown or anything like that. But long story short, the next week, Amber sets him up as a guest on the show. And he comes on the show, and where every time she asked him a question, he'd answer it. And every time I asked him a question, he'd be like, yeah, no, uh-huh. So, you get tired of that shit. So I said to him, look, I'm done asking questions. This guy's a clown. If you want to ask questions, you ask questions. And I just sat back for the rest of it. I couldn't stand that guy. And then lo and behold, you can kind of look at his career and everything that he's done, going to Seattle, and he goes in and he's meeting a new team, and you feel like you want to make a good first impression. And he sits down and he goes, you guys got 3 questions to the media. And the media says, why do we only have 3 questions? He goes, well, now you got 2. It seemed like something right out of a wrestling dialogue, right? But it was kind of crazy. So Eric Bedard, my least favorite athlete in the history of sports. And for people who don't know who he is, he's a former Oriole pitcher, pitched for the Mariners, the Rays. He bounced around the league.
That's what he gets.
So that's one story.
Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah.
Well, we have our league correspondent, Shinblade, is now with us. Shin, did you have any questions for Jeremy Conn?
I had wrestling questions, like a story about the guy who had 3 questions. Remind me of what's his name from the Seahawks, Marshawn Lynch. So.
Oh yeah.
You can keep going with the stories. I'm just listening. When we get to wrestling, I'll ask some questions there, because I talked to him earlier during the week.
No, yeah, it's interesting because I know you saw my post. I don't watch wrestling today. I'm not into it. I don't like it. Which may not make a lot of fans happy, but you fast forward 1997 to I'd say 97, because when I was a senior in high school, I lived and died by wrestling. I camped out for wrestling tickets. I'd be down at the Baltimore Arena waiting. I geeked out over the NWO. I was the biggest NWO fan in the world. my friends and I would kick the crap out of each other, and we'd put guys in wrestling holds. I remember the cops getting called on us. I body slammed a friend on a couch and broke his couch, and the people downstairs heard it. I mean, we had parties every Monday Nitro. I remember my favorite wrestling moment and my favorite wrestler of all time is Scott Hall. And I went to Starrcade in D.C., and I'm holding up my little Wolfpack sign. He's walking by, and he picks me out of the crowd and gives me a little touch of the fingers. As gay as this sounds to anybody listening, a little touch of the fingers. And we tapped him, and I geeked out, and I started doing Scott Hall's little punching thing, and I'm jumping, and I knocked over some old lady. And I looked down, and at that moment, I really didn't care because it was the greatest moment ever. And then when we left Starrcade in D.C., we were driving home. It was almost like a fantasy ruined. It's almost like I always joke, like seeing the Oriole bird with his head off, We were driving home, and I saw Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Nasty Boys, and, God, who else was in the car? It was like another bad guy. But, like, Hacksaw had just wrestled it was Chris Jericho. And they're all in the same car. And I'm like, screw you guys. I hated Chris Jericho. I had a sign that said Chris Jericho loves the small package or whatever, has a small package, something like that. So my buddy mooned them as we were driving down 495, driving next to him. So all he saw was some fat kid's ass the whole time when we were driving right next to him, but we were screaming at him. And, it was just, those were the cool days. We had a ton of fun. It's just, I'll go over my buddy's house every once in a while and watch WrestleMania, but I don't relate. I don't like the characters. I don't know. It's just not for me now. But back then, I'm talking collecting wrestling figures. I still have about 100 of them in my garage. It was just totally geeked out over the NWO and everything that happened then.
Well, actually, who wasn't a fan of the Attitude Era? Because I think I asked you and another guy, I forget his name, because I think he tried to burn you on Facebook. And I asked him, was he a fan of the cartoon years, which was like 1992 or 93 to 96, that we would call it. So any guy who liked wrestling between 97 and 2002, it was just a given because it was like a household thing, even though it was really wild.
Here's a couple more. I try to run through these stories quick, but I miss these wrestling stories. When we camped out overnight, one of my buddies, there was a homeless guy staying there. One of my buddies jumped on the cardboard box he was staying in and crushed it. And I guess the guy went around the corner. When he came back, he knew it was all the people waiting for wrestling tickets. He didn't know who did it, so he dropped his pants and defecated in front of all of us, just like right on the ground, and then pulled his pants up and walked away. And we're going, we're sitting there drinking, having a good time. I said, that's the weirdest yet coolest thing in our short lives that have ever happened to us.
Oh, my God.
Crap right in front of us. And then on top of it, and here's how much, we were just huge wrestling nerds for all the NWO stuff. When I went to my buddy had a little band. It was a crappy band. They were awful, but they were having practice on a Sunday night. But I was ordering a pay-per-view at my house. It was when Hogan was going to wrestle Flair in the WCW. And I'm like, this is cool. This hasn't happened before. We haven't seen this. And it was snowing here in Baltimore. We were on Hamilton Avenue coming down the hill, and my buddy's brakes locked up. Well, the car starts sliding. We slide into a telephone pole at about 45 miles an hour. They had those electric seatbelts that would slide over top of you. So I slid out of the seatbelt. I got, like, this burn across my chest from the seatbelt, like, basically ripping off a layer of skin on my chest. And my head shattered his windshield. And, I just had blood pouring down my face. I look like one of these old 80s, an 80s match between, Tully Blanchard and Rick, whoever. You could throw them out there, the Steinbach, whatever. Yeah, and just, blood's pouring down my face. And the cops come, the ambulance comes, and they're telling me I got to go to the hospital. And my dumb ass is sitting there screaming, is like, no, Flair's wrestling Hogan. I'll go home, I'll clean it up, and then I'll drive myself to the hospital. They're like, no, you can't because you might have a concussion. And I think back on those days, and I'm like, what the hell was wrong with me? Like, it was my male soap opera, but I wanted to see it, and I've been looking forward to it all week. But here I am. I needed 6 stitches in the top of my head to close this gash, and all I wanted to do was watch wrestling.
Ah, the golden years.
Good old years.
Well, when we were kids, too, like you talk about the cartoon era, I remember as like an 8-year-old kid seeing a wrestling magazine with Kamala, and it had Hulk Hogan's head on a spear, and like that frightened the hell out of me, man. I thought Hogan had died. I'm looking at this magazine, and I had to wait till. I mean, you can't go to the internet and find out this stuff is fake. I'm like, damn, he finally got Hogan. We had to wait till Saturday night and stay up and make sure Saturday Night Live wasn't on and watch wrestling back then. But you know, it's just a big part of my my childhood, to say the least.
Yeah, it's good. Yes, I mean, just to prove that how everybody was in wrestling around the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars is my mother got to watch. I'm not sure, Jeremy, if you got to watch WrestleMania, the one that just passed. And
I didn't watch it. No.
Okay, the match.
I actually watched last year's, but that was the last one I've seen.
Okay, well, this year's WrestleMania, Sting went against Triple H, and during the match, you know, DX came out to help Triple H, and then NWO, Hogan, Hall, and Nash helped Sting.
Oh, I watched that because I was a little upset at the whole thing. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So my mother, and everybody calls her Mama Tech, my mother she watches wrestling on and off, but she watched it a lot. She's the reason why I was in the wrestling back in the 80s, NWA, and back around the Monday Night Wars. So I'm watching a match with her, and my mother goes and says, wait, that's stupid. Why is the NWO helping out Sting? They never were friends. And I'm sitting there like, out the blue, and I'm like, okay, that lets you know something right there. That my mother, who hasn't watched wrestling in almost forever, she knows of it, watches stars from, you know, back in the day, and even she can even say, wait, NWO and Sting were feuding. Why are they even helping them out? It doesn't make no sense. And my mom would say, this look like it's stupid.
See, I remember, you know, and that's what, when I watched it, that's the first thing I said, because I just watched if you haven't seen it, and I told you that Scott Hall was my favorite wrestler. I love the Wolfpack, the Clique, all, you know, when you start talking about all of it. And I also love Scott Steiner, Big Papa Pump, the Big Bad Booty Daddy. You know, I loved that whole era there. But I just watched the E60 piece that ESPN did on Scott Hall, and like, I'm almost like a kid in there. I'm tearing up watching him, crying about, you know, where his life has gone, how he's fallen apart. And we actually just had Jake the Snake Roberts in studio with us. He's kind of doing like a one-man show where he's telling stories, but they're funny stories. Like he tells a story about taking his snake in and it bit a stripper on her thigh and almost got her right on her, you know, it got pretty close. But he's telling all these great stories, and I guess that's kind of what he did in his one-man show. But every other word out of Jake the Snake's mouth is an F-bomb, you know. It's kind of crazy. But long story short, you know, he was telling us that Scott Hall had a pacemaker in when he took that backflip or backdrop at WrestleMania. It's like, what the hell are you doing, man? You here you are wrecked, but that's all he wants to do is perform. And, you know, he had his drug issues, he had his daddy issues and all that other stuff. But I still think he's the greatest wrestler to never win a heavyweight championship. But that's just my opinion.
Oh, man. Well, since you like Jake the Snake Roberts, NFC Game Boy, can I tell you our many encounters with doing work with Jake the Snake? NFC Game Boy?
Well, we had a chance to interview Jake. He came up to Cumberland, Maryland, about a year ago. It was right before WrestleMania 30 when he got inducted to the Hall of Fame. So it was late 2013. And he came up to Cumberland, and we got a chance to interview him. They was like doing a little Q&A from our previous station that we was with. And it was just a delight to see him entertain, you know, the fans that came up. Me and him talking about getting blowjobs from chicks, you know, coming down to Baltimore. You know, like when you deal with the boys, you don't really talk about wrestling. You know, you talk about girls, you talk about, you know, hotel parties and stuff. We rarely talk about wrestling when you around, you know, most of the boys and everything. And, you know, with me and Tech, it was great to see him, you know, looking at old matches, explaining what had happened. You know, Vince didn't know what he was doing and how he did a lot of his interviews because, you know, I graduated in 99, so I only graduated 2 years after you. And I remember, you know, in high school days, running home, how important all that stuff was, you know, the NWO, DX, you know, the Attitude Era, of course, really jumping off, the Austin era and everything. And one thing that I really noticed is that promos, even back then, was still relevant and still being delivered. but no one did a real chilling promo like Jake the Snake. And to this day, a lot of people, and including myself, probably say that he's probably one of the greatest wrestling promo artists of all time because...
Well, yeah, and there's two things that I wanted to, just so I don't forget it, just speaking on Jake the Snake, because he told us the story. He's like, they brought him in to be the bad guy, and he was the first, I guess, likable heel in wrestling. He's the first guy that fans really started to love, and he's a bad guy. And then, you kind of feed off it. Like, even with Goldberg when he was doing it, or Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they're almost supposed to be bad guys, but they're not. They're heels that turn face, and it was kind of crazy to see. But just talking about Jake the Snake, and I didn't want to forget this, they were trying to get him to take pictures with us, and somebody said, hey, put him in the DDT, and he said, if I put your head back there, you got to lick my asshole. And I'm like, whoa, dude, I just met you. Like, he was just real forward and didn't care. He's just one of the guys, man. He was a lot of fun to be around.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. That is true. I know two things Jake the Snake told me. I got to talk to him. We've been with him a few times personally, and he was this little kid. He had to be 8, 9 years old.
Yeah, he was like 8.
He kept asking Jake Roberts like these questions, like, "Hey Jake, what's your favorite wrestler? Hey Jake, what's it?" And he's like, "Damn kid, are you writing a book?" And like that. The little kid, Jake hugged him, but he, then Jake, one of my favorite wrestlers is Sting, and we was at the bar, and me and Jake Roberts was just talking about. He's a football fan. He's a Cowboys fan. So we was talking about, he told me he had a bet with CBS or one of the affiliates of, picking games, and if he was able to pick who won, they would have to do something or whatever. I was like, Jake, I said, what's your thoughts of Sting? He was like, he's overrated. He's a pimple on Ricky Steamboat's ass. I said, look. So I said, what about Jerry Lawler? I hate that son of a bitch. That fucker is ass. I was like, okay. But Jake was a great guy. He actually threw, remember since he game, we was backstage in another show, he actually threw his snake on me.
Yeah,
taking pictures.
Cool.
He threw the snake. Yeah, he take pictures. I wasn't scared of snakes. And, but it was all like Jake Snake's a definitely a good guy.
Snakes are beautiful.
It's kind of funny because, the business, getting into sports talk radio and, knowing that wrestling is sports entertainment and how it's kind of intertwined, the guys I got to interview along the way, I interviewed John Cena before he blew up. And, when I was hearing about this white guy rapping and that's his shtick, wearing his jorts and whatnot, I'm like, this is so corny. And then he came to the radio station and did, a freestyle rap about our morning show. And it was actually, it was pretty clever, and it was on the spot, so he didn't have someone writing it and making it up for him. And he couldn't have been a nicer guy. I interviewed, I don't even like bringing this up, but I interviewed Chris Benoit 3 weeks before we all know how that ended. And he couldn't have been a bigger jerk to us. He called in late, and you got your time restraints when you're on terrestrial radio, and you got to set things up. And I just, we interviewed him for 7 minutes, and he was just a total douchebag. And then 3 weeks later, we were talking oh my God, I can't believe this story's even true of what happened with him. Interviewing Booker T, and he was cool, and Bradshaw, and getting a chance to meet some of these guys. I remember being at a wrestling event downtown, and knowing that some of the guys were in town for a weekend, and they did an in-house show, and they did another show right after. There was I guess it was an in-house show here and a pay-per-view in D.C. or vice versa. But anyway, I took some girl to prom, and we were in Little Italy, and all the wrestlers were in Sabatino's in Little Italy, and the Big Show's in the bathroom, and he's taking a leak, and you kind of see the guys, hey, stay away from him, you're fat. And so some dude comes up and puts his hand out, and he goes, hey, man, Big Show, it's so good to see you. And he looks down, and he goes, can't you see I got my hands full? And the guy's like, yeah, whatever you're done, bud. He didn't even care. He would have held it for him if he asked him nice enough. But, it's just sometimes these guys are bigger than life, and, people aren't afraid to go up to them. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about today's wrestling. I've tried. When they did whatever it was, the anniversary, and they were bringing back all the old wrestlers, I ain't gonna lie, I tuned in. I was checking it out, and when I saw some of my favorites, it was pretty cool. But I don't know. I just don't relate to any of these guys. I know some of the names, and I've seen some of them, met some of them, but it just doesn't do anything for me.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Big Show in the bathroom and somebody sticks their hand out. I have to say that I don't care who they are. I don't care if they Ric Flair. I don't care if they Bret Hart. If they're in the bathroom, I am not going to stick my hand out like I'm going to hold it or something.
I swear on my kid's eyes, this dude walked up to him while Big Show was holding Little Show in his hands and taking a leak, and this guy put his hand out like he was going to turn and shake his hand. So, yeah, and I'm just in there like, I can't believe this is happening. I didn't want to be the guy sitting over there like he's Big Show, and then you get caught meat gazing or something. You're at the urinal two spots down.
In tribute to Jeremy Conn, because I know Jeremy Conn's very random like us and doesn't mind telling stories about himself. Me being Tech, I'm going to tell a story for the first time on air publicly. NSC Game Boy knows this story. Speaking of bathrooms, me and a couple of my buddies, we were at Columbia Mall going to the movies. NSC Game Boy know this story. And no, Jeremy, you have 2 sons. I believe you have 2 sons, right? This don't sound like a good story. Now, if you have a girl, if you're a father and you have a daughter, you really shouldn't bring your daughter to a male bathroom. That's public. So this Caucasian guy brings his daughter in the bathroom. No, he's standing in the urinal. I go in the urinal to pee. I don't know the little girl was there. So I go take a piss, and the little girl turns around and sees me, and she has her eyes wide open. So I just shook her head yes, and she is continually staring at what. And I'm like, dude, I said, sir, your daughter, I'm like, why are you bringing your daughter? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I said, why the hell is she in here? And this Latino dude looked at her and started saying something to her in Spanish, and she ran away. So just the fact that she's looking at her dad in the urinal, turns around, looks at me, has her mouth wide open, smiling. It's like, pause. Like, this.
Lie to you not. As you can tell, I don't share the story.
Exactly.
That should have never been said.
And I'm thinking, as a father, we had kids. Like, why would you bring your girl into a male bathroom that's public at that? And she's walking around freely.
I thought she got
stars. What was that?
You have those moments all the time where crazy stuff happens, and I don't know if you guys were listening or if you heard the clip, but Wyman filled in for Garceau the one day, and anytime he fills in, I do 10 with Ken, because it's just something we started on the fly. We're asking 10 questions, and there's normally like 6 sports questions, and then I throw in 4 random crazy questions here or there. We used to do like an F, Marry, Kill. We called it Bedwetter Dead, and then someone actually emailed the radio station saying that we wanted to kill Lindsay Lohan. And like my boss came to us and I said, no. So we changed it to Bedwetter Shed, whatever. So we changed the whole thing up, but I'd have fun with it and put some weird stuff in there, and Ken would always pick no matter what. Like I think I put in Elton John, George Michael, and Boy George or something. So he had to pick which one he thought was, F, Marry, Kill. But so the one day I was talking to Ken, and I was talking about, I don't know how it came up, going to the bathroom at work, and how people, you could be back there dropping a deuce, but when someone walks in, you get quiet like a church mouse, and you pretend like you're not pulling the toilet paper out or whatever. And then there's some people that just let loose, and they're just so comfortable, it doesn't matter. Whatever sounds come out of me, just deal with it. So we have this sound clip, so I'm talking to Ken, and Ken says, you know what I love? I love when little boys go into the bathroom and they pull their pants all the way around their ankles. And then I'm just like, you love that? You love that. So we saved the clip, and now we replay it, and it sounds worse than even when he said it. And then you just hear me laughing in the background. And the best part about radio is you get this stuff saved. I mean, it's locked in. You save it, put it there, and you can play it whenever you want. And just real quick, like when we were doing Playmakers, I would actually we had the kid, the Perm, who was like this weird, sweetheart of a kid, but he's a weird, creepy kid. I don't think he's ever kissed a girl. He might have like some social or mental issues, whatever. But we loved the guy, but we picked on him nonstop. He's a part of our show. So I would take clips of us having him on the air, and I would edit it to where it said, where it was him talking about Hugh Jackman and Wolverine or something, and I'd change it up to, I think Hugh Jackman's sexy. And you could clearly hear that it wasn't him saying it like in a sentence. It was all broken up. And so I'd piece all these audio pieces together. I'd take a single word and I'd put it in there to where he's saying all this perverted stuff, like Zac Efron has a nice body and I want to be on it. You know, and so there was always that. And then we'd play it and he'd lose his mind going, I didn't say that. Who said that? I didn't say it. And he, you know, so we'd have fun with stuff like that. And that's the fun part about radio is when you enjoy what you're doing and you love the show and you can have fun with your guy friends, no matter how embarrassing the story is, we're all going to laugh. But at the end of the day, you get over it.
I don't know about that pants down story though. I don't know about that.
And it's a Game Boy.
Yeah, I have a few questions I want to ask real quick because I know we show on time, and I want you to just answer them as quickly and as honestly as you can. And my first question: Joe Flacco, elite or not?
Elite's a strong word. I think he's a really good quarterback. I've said this before when I've had this argument with people, and nobody will agree with me because he has a Super Bowl. I would have taken Matt Ryan over Joe Flacco. I would still do that today because I think he runs his offense, controls it. But that being said, I think Joe Flacco is very good and doesn't get enough credit. But when you're talking about top 10 quarterbacks, I think he's in that 9, 10, 11, 12 range. And that could be changing as young guys come in and old guys leave. I mean, it'd be very naive to look at guys like Andrew Luck and seeing what they're doing and think that they're not leapfrogging these guys, even though they don't have the same accolades. You can see it on the field. So.
Right. I got something to say on that. See once you're done there, that's a Game Boy.
No problem. My next question. The New England Patriots, do you think the punishment fit the crime?
I wish they'd burn him at the stake. No, I mean, well, I hate the Patriots, so I'm not the right guy to ask for it. But, you know.
I hate them, too.
If you go all the way back to when the Patriots played the Rams in the Super Bowl, Marshall Faulk was saying they knew what we were running. Then you had Spygate on the next Super Bowl, or a couple Super Bowls later, and who knows how long they were videotaping teams. And people can say, oh, it doesn't mean much. I don't know why they let air out of the footballs. Maybe Tom Brady has those Burger King hands that guy had, and he can't hold his Whopper. But who knows what it is. But for whatever reason, they did it, and they felt like it gave them an advantage. It's like talking about steroids. I mean, guys take steroids that don't hit home runs. Guys take steroids that don't need to heal faster, but they're doing it to get an edge, and it's a confidence boost. You know, when you look at baseball, I always joke that Alex Sanchez was one of the first guys that got suspended by Major League Baseball with the Marlins, and he has 2 career home runs, and they're both inside the park home runs. So, you know, and he was busted for steroids. When you look at what the Patriots did, I thought the suspension was very fitting. You know, he gets a 4-game, he gets that embarrassment for doing this, and he knows what's going on. And that stupid stuff they were talking about, the deflator was a guy losing weight. I mean, that's just so you're telling me in the history of the world, the only person that ever called themselves the deflator for losing weight was a guy that was under investigation for deflating footballs. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah,
so you know they're guilty of something. But that being said, I think it fit the crime.
Hold on, Shen. Hold on, Shen. I got one last question, then you and Tech can take over.
Okay.
Last question. Baltimore professional basketball. Do you think they're ready for it? Yes or no?
I don't think it will ever happen. Just because you're looking at a 2-team city right now, and they don't have the proper venue. The Baltimore Arena is not the proper venue. And it's kind of weird to say this because I grew up playing basketball. It's my first love. I went into neighborhoods I had no business being in and played hoops.
East Baltimore.
I still play today. I coach today. I mean, I remember going in a neighborhood playing basketball, and a guy had a steak knife tucked in his waistband, and it dropped out his pants or his shorts while he was running. I said, what the hell is that? And he put it back in. He said, anybody messing with me, I'm going to cut him. And I said, this guy doesn't foul me the whole game, or I want to be on his team so there's no issues. I'm just passing him the ball and letting him shoot every time. But in this, it's a white-collar sport, though, because the money's made from luxury suites. So you need the businessmen. You need the guys making top dollar. You need all – like in D.C., it's great because D.C. brings in a ton of money. There's a ton of businesses there. I just don't know it'll have the backing. I think it could work for 5 to 10 years, but if the team isn't successful on the court, I don't think it's going to translate to money coming in from people off the court, and that's why I think it would fail. I would love to see it. You know, I'd be one of those guys willing to go down and watch the games, but I just don't think it's going to work.
Okay, thank you, man. Thank you, Tech.
Yeah.
Shen, back to y'all.
Yeah, go, Shane.
Actually, you know, while he was on the subject of football, I forgot about this because he was talking about Tom Brady, but I got it now. So, you know, being that we all hate Tom Brady, you had extra satisfaction that Tom Brady had egg on his face during the so-called undefeated season when he lost to the Giants.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that to me was great. It was actually the first Super Bowl I got. I didn't go to the game. I went to work that week at Radio Row, which is still in my career one of the coolest things I've ever done, where you literally have celebrities walking by you left and right. But I just remember watching that year and going, all right, the Colts got to beat them. Damn it, how did they lose to them? And then the Ravens had them, and they let them off the hook. And then the Eagles had them, and they let them off the hook. And then you're sitting here wondering, who's going to beat them? And then in the Super Bowl, it shows up. I love that. I love the fact that it happened. The Giants beat them twice in the Super Bowl, which is kind of odd. You know, I think what the Patriots have done, they're successful, they're smart, but it makes me wonder about all those years. You know, how long were they cheating? How long did they do anything to kind of skirt the issues of the league? So, but I did. I loved the season when they went. I had a buddy that had a tattoo, and he was a big Peyton Manning fan. He had an 18 jersey and a -1 with the Patriot symbol in it for that season. I said, it might be the dumbest tattoo I've ever seen, but okay, you know, more power to you. He must hate Brady more than I do.
Well, I say that because I say this about Tom Brady, and people get offended when I say this, that now that Tom Brady is quote unquote one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and I give half the respect to him because we don't know how much he cheated, but personally, he wasn't supposed to be anything when he got out of college. You know, he was a baseball player also.
Yeah.
And then all it took was Drew Bledsoe getting hurt, and then they DLC'd him into the Patriots with Bill Belichick, and that set the dynasty. So a lot of people get very, very upset when I say that, and it's just like it's the actual truth. I mean, Joe Flacco came out of Delaware, which is like not a top tier school, but he made it work in Baltimore.
Well, you can look at, I think, some of the greatest players to ever play any position in the NFL. I mean, Jerry Rice is the greatest wide receiver in NFL history by most people's standards. And, you know, he went to Mississippi Valley State. You know, Walter Payton, same thing, another 1AA school that he went to, and so on and so on. You can look at a lot of players and see that they were great and didn't go to big schools and still have success. I mean, the interesting thing about Tom Brady was he wasn't even necessarily the starter when he was at Michigan. I mean, he was they split time with Drew Henson. Drew Henson was the primary starter, and then they would rotate and switch guys up because they didn't know who to go with. But and then that's why he's a 6th-round draft pick. I mean, there's a guy, they did that ESPN, the Brady Six. One of those cats that was drafted in front of him is a goat herder now. Like, what the hell is that? Who becomes a goat herder after being a quarterback in the NFL? But yeah, I don't think Brady's a system guy. I do think he's really good. I think he's smart, but he's one of those guys that's had the best offensive line.
Oh yeah,
one of the best offensive lines year after year, the best coach in football, and I think a genius mastermind. Even if it comes to skirting the issues and defensively setting the team up. I mean, when he won his first 3 Super Bowls, what was he throwing? 20 touchdowns a year? And you look at the guys around the league, he didn't have to, you know. But I digress because my hatred for Brady makes me look like I'm just a hater, and I'm not throwing out real numbers. So.
That's fine. That's fine, Jeremy. I want to say real quick, too, is real quick, of course, in the NFL, greatest wide receiver, bar none, hands up and down, as you used to say, is Jerry Rice. I agree. I'm sure most of us will agree. Now,
I think Randy Moss was the most talented, but you can't make that argument when you stack Jerry Rice's numbers and everything he did up against. I think Moss had the chance to be the greatest athlete to ever play. I mean, he was going to be drafted by the Chicago Cubs to play center field. I mean, it's crazy when you think about what type of athlete he was, but he was such a knucklehead and he wanted to be Randy. You know, he just wanted to do what he wanted to do, and I think that's what led to what happened. So anyway, go ahead.
That's true.
Did you see that 30 for 30?
That's fine.
Did you see that 30 for 30?
Grand University. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen it. I'm going to have to watch it. No, definitely going to have to watch it. Wide receiver, Jerry Rice. Now, greatest linebacker. Now, a lot of people, I've listened to the show, a lot of people tend to say Ray Lewis is the greatest linebacker, or Lawrence Taylor, or some. Who would you say greatest linebacker of all time?
The hard part is those two guys are totally different because I think Lawrence Taylor should be compared more to the defensive ends of today, like Reggie White and the rest of those guys because, he was going after quarterbacks. I do think Ray Lewis is the best interior linebacker that I've ever watched, and, I've heard stories and watched videotape of Dick Butkus and what he was able to do. When I was growing up, I watched Mike Singletary. But I do, and I'm not a Ravens fan, I do think Ray Lewis I think he's the greatest linebacker I've ever seen.
Okay, what about safety? Greatest safety of all time. Would you say Ronnie Lott, Ed Reed? Those
you
want to
know what I think?
Who?
No, I mean, the guy that I think, here's the coulda, woulda, shoulda. I think if you took Troy Polamalu and you took Ed Reed, I think that was Sean Taylor. I think Sean Taylor was on his way before he got shot. You watch him. He hit like Troy Polamalu. He ran with the ball like Ed Reed. I thought that guy was so phenomenal, and it's just a shame what happened. And Ravens fans hate when I say that because, there's no arguing what Ed Reed did. I mean, that he's freaking fantastic as well. So I can't argue that one bit. But Ronnie Lott took one of his fingers off the end of his finger to finish playing a game. So, I mean, you've got some great ones. And I also love the fact Steve Atwater, there's that great video of Christian Okoye was running over everybody. And then, Denver plays Kansas City, and Atwater just levels Okoye. And that Nigerian nightmare, that was the end of his dreams. I mean, he was just done. That's the last time anybody was intimidated by him. Not to say his career was over, but Steve Atwater could hit like a freight train.
Yeah, this is like what's his face in the Titans ran against Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis pasted him in the mouth. Remember that?
Oh, Eddie George,
Eddie George, okay, real quick, greatest quarterback of all time or greatest running back?
I'll go greatest. Well, look, anybody's listening to me, I'm going to tell you Peyton Manning's the greatest quarterback of all time. And I understand we can sit here and talk postseason, and I'm not going to get into how the fact that he's had 7 leads in under 2 minutes and his defense has lost in the game or his coach called a stupid-ass timeout against the Jets. Let me just stop because I'm going to keep going on that. I do think that, if I took Peyton Manning out of it, John Elway was, in my opinion, one of the greatest quarterbacks I ever watched play. Now, I don't put Johnny Unitas in the group because I didn't watch him play. I understand what he meant to the game, and I do think he's one of the greatest quarterbacks. You can't deny Joe Montana at the 4 Super Bowls. But I love when people try to tell me it's about rings. And it's like, well, then where's Terry Bradshaw on your top 5? Because he's got 4.
And Marino.
My favorite running, Dan Marino too. I got a buddy. He'd sit here and tell you that Dan Marino only had one running back in the history of his career who'll go over 1,000 yards, and I think he had like 1,006 yards, and that was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, they did throw the ball a ton, but how do you not get a 1,000-yard rusher in the history of that guy's career? It's kind of crazy. But greatest running back of all time, I think, is Jim Brown. My favorite running back of all time is Walter Payton.
Yeah, that's mine. Jim Brown, to me, in my opinion, watching tape, to me, is the greatest running back of all time. The greatest running back I've watched will be between Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
But I'll see Barry Sanders
Emmitt's one of those guys too. Doesn't get enough love because he ran behind arguably the greatest offensive line in the history of the game. But he played hurt, and you go back and look at it. We can sit here and talk about those great Cowboy teams. Troy Aikman was winning Super Bowls throwing 16 touchdown passes. 17 touchdown passes a year, and Emmitt's just racking up these numbers. He was the true workhorse there. But there's no question. My favorite thing about Jim Brown's the old okey doke where he'd walk back to the huddle like his arm was broken and he can't run anymore, and then they hand him the ball and it's like he was given new life and he just runs over linebackers, and getting people thinking he's hurt and he's not, and he's just running you over.
Well, it's a question too, and we're getting text. Some people said Ed Reed they think is the greatest safety of all time. Afrocentric Queen said Emmitt Smith was one of her favorite running backs. People starting to text and say their favorite. Somebody else has said John Elway. Someone else has texted me and said Joe Montana. I want to say this real quick. If anybody knows, NFC Game Boy, big football fan, and know Shin is, you hear the word elite all the time. Everybody talk about Tom Brady, blah, 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 blah. You go into history, people talk about Elway, Montana, and Staubach. Why is it, Jeremy, that people even give Bradshaw more credit than they do Troy Aikman? the man has 3 Super Bowl rings, but yet watching NFL Network, watching all these, all these sports shows, everybody talk about the elite of the elite rings. It seems like for some reason Troy Aikman gets snubbed. People just forget he was a great quarterback too. Why do you think that is?
See, I mean, I think he's in that group of, when you talk about great quarterbacks, I don't ever want to say he's a Hall of Famer. I just think the pieces around him were better. And I think that's the way people look at Terry Bradshaw, too. I mean, go look at all the Hall of Famers. I think, what was there, 9 Hall of Famers on the defensive side of the ball that they had? And, you look at the offense with Lynn Swann and Franco Harris, and, I mean, they were just incredible. So, but, yeah, I mean, there's no denying it. When you're a part of the team, it's like you talk about the greatest basketball players of all time, and everybody's going to say Jordan, and Bill Russell's got more rings than fingers. He's got 11. So, it's crazy. So, I mean, I think there has to be some sort of criteria. I think championship plays into it. But, in a team sport, it's hard to say that, if, for example, if a quarterback goes out there and his offensive line doesn't block for him, or they have a bad day, or the running back fumbles the ball, is it his fault that they lose the game in the championship, or vice versa? The defense lets you down. I always talk about it all the time that I think wins and losses are overrated pretty much in any sport, which sounds silly, more so than baseball than anything else. I mean, you could throw a 2-hitter and have 2 errors in a game and give up a run and lose 1-0, or in a football game, you could throw 6 touchdowns and lose because your defense gave up 7. I don't buy into wins and losses going by individual names unless it's an individual sport. But anyway, that's just me. I always get in arguments over that all the time, but I could talk about that for hours.
I have a quick question. We talked about greatest, what's in football, but I just got a text from somebody. It was probably from my uncle. Also, he says Eric Dickerson's one of the best running backs of all time. But also, I wanted to ask you, there was a time in PE class where we would watch videos on Fridays, those old ESPN videos, and there was a guy by the name, he just passed away. His name is Deacon Jones.
Yeah.
And he had one of the funniest quotes that he said about his head slap. He said, the head slap is like to get an extra step. So whenever you slap upside the man's head or a woman, they tend to blink their eyes before you can get into the play. And when he said or a woman, I remember I was bursting out laughing at 13 years old, saying, what woman would play on a friggin' football field in the 70s?
I think maybe he was talking about getting an extra step of getting away in case he got found by his wife or something. But no, Deacon Jones, because of that head slap, I mean, it was outlawed. They thought he could give concussions to players. He'd smack them upside their head, their bell would be ringing. But yeah, I mean, that guy, they didn't even. And the weird thing is, you see all these guys breaking sack totals. They didn't keep track of sacks when he first started playing. It was back towards the end of his career when they started keeping that statistic. So who knows how many sacks he actually got in seasons. It'd be interesting to go back and look at the numbers and see if they could figure all that out.
But the man was scary by itself. The man was menacing. He reminded me of Jake the Snake. When you watch those ESPN, NFL Network, they used to talk about greatest sack leaders, and Deacon Jones sit there and talk like he never smiled, and he just had that growly voice. Like he looked intimidating. This is look alone. Just look menacing.
What about Ed Too Tall Jones?
Yeah, another guy. I mean, you could sit here and Ed Too Tall Jones. I actually met him, and he is too tall. He's a big dude. He did some boxing and stuff too. So, Mean Joe Green. So
Ken Norton Jr.
Yeah, a bunch of them.
His father used to box.
Before we let you go, Jeremy, I'm letting NSC Game Boy close it out because I do appreciate you being on here. I know you was on here a lot longer than what initially was expected, but we appreciate it. We do.
That's all right.
Your predictions with the Baltimore Ravens, do you think that they are probably Super Bowl contenders again in the next year or two, or do you think it's going to take another 10, 15 years before we go back to the big bowl?
I think when the history books are written, I think this draft class they have coming in is going to be, look, you can't get past their first draft class where you have 2 Hall of Famers in the first round, even though the rest of the draft is there. I think they got a lot of really good players out of this group. I'm interested to see, like, what happens with Perriman, if he can be that threat. You already know he can take the top off the defense, and he's got that speed. He gets comparisons to Julio Jones, and I think that's interesting. I don't know that he's going to be that player, but obviously when you hear the Ravens drafted a receiver and he has a hard time catching the ball, that doesn't make it. It's like saying I got a boat and it has a hard time floating. It's kind of not what you want to hear. But I do think they're the best team in the AFC North. I think the Steelers' defense is young, but I think it's suspect. And I think the Ravens' defense is going to hold up and be solid. I believe that they're one of the 3 or 4 teams that can win it all this year in the AFC. And right now in Vegas, I think they're 20-1, which is like 5th or 6th best odds, something like that. But the one team, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a fan, but I think the Colts are dangerous, especially if they can somehow get home field advantage with the speedy receivers they have. I don't know if people have 4 defensive backs that can match up with him. And Andrew Luck, I mean, let's be honest, that guy is some kind of machine or robot sent from the future. Who knows what he is? I mean, he even talks, or he talks like he's eating. So, right. I think they're dangerous. But I do think the Ravens are going to win the AFC North. I think they're going to host a home playoff game. And I think they're going to go far in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I think that, when you look at it, I think Denver, I'd like to see Denver go deep just because I'm a big Peyton Manning fan, but the loss of their left tackle and then looking at Peyton's age and wondering if last year, the end of the season, was just an injury or if that's really Father Time catching up with him, makes you wonder what's going to happen this year with him.
And man Winter, when it hits January, Peyton Manning, his EXP levels seem to go down.
Denver going to win. Yeah.
Well, also, plus, you got to figure out that I think you already talked about his neck, though. It's time for him to give it up because I thought the last year's Super Bowl he was going to do it, but they just, like Tech said, they fell flat.
Yeah, I have condolences to you, Jeremy, on that.
That Colts team that they played was doo-doo, in my opinion. I mean, that was Andrew Luck and a whole lot of nothing, and they came out and just looked like hot garbage.
Real quick, Jeremy, do you believe the fact that, yes, I feel we should have beat the Patriots because we had them beat. If we would have defeated the Patriots, do you believe that we would have defeated the Colts in Indianapolis?
I felt like the Ravens didn't match up well with the Colts, but I don't like. That's hard to say, man, because
that's
Andrew Luck.
Yeah,
I felt like, and I said it, everybody was laughing at me. I said the one team I didn't think the Ravens wanted to see in the playoffs was the Colts. I said I think they can beat Denver. They could beat New England in New England. I thought they could beat any of those teams, and I was one of the few people that actually picked them to beat the Steelers when everybody was down on them. But I don't know. I mean, that's because Andrew Luck is one of those guys that creates. I mean, he by defensive ends and tackles, and he taps him on the head and says, "Good tackle." I mean, there's something wrong with that guy. Like, there's something just a little off that he likes it that much. And the way he extends plays and is able to get the ball down the field, I think it would have been tough to go into Indy and beat them.
Yeah,
I think it's just psychology.
Yeah, well, with that being said, time is of the essence, definitely. Jeremy, we thank you very much for coming on to the show. Real quick, anything you want to go ahead and plug or let everybody know about any appearances you have coming up for the show or anything you want to promote?
No, I appreciate it, man. My show's Monday to Friday, 2 to 6 on 105.7 The Fan. You can check it out on 105.7thefan.com. The only other thing I talk about is the National MS Society. My wife was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis like 2 years ago. So I try to do everything I can to raise money and awareness, more important, have people talking. I just had a guy email me today, and he said, "I heard your wife had MS. I don't know what to do. My wife just got diagnosed." So my wife's actually going to call his wife and talk to her and kind of be like, I don't want to say like a mentor, but, we try to help out as much as possible.
Support system.
Raise awareness for the disease. There's no cure, but things are getting better. So National MS Society, if you can donate. If you can tell people about it, tell people about it. So thanks, man.
Yeah, well, we're after the send me an email. We'll make sure we'll talk this week and get details. We'll definitely want to mind contributing to that cause for your wife and everyone else.
I appreciate it, man. And anytime you guys need me, man, give me a shout, and if I'm free, I'll do it.
Thank you, man. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Everybody, that was Conn Man, Jeremy Conn from 105.7 The Fan, CBS Baltimore. Yes. Everybody, your thoughts?
Well, Wow, I enjoyed it greatly. I've listened to his show a few times. He's a real stand-up dude. Great energy. I would tell all our fans, if you have the chance to check out his show. Great interview, and I can't wait to really do some business with him. Hopefully, 107 The Fan down the road.
Yeah, very great guy. We never met personally, but we've ever texted to the show many a times. Of course, big up to our buddy Ed Norris and Scott Garshaw, and talked to Jeremy Conn a few times off air. Very nice guy, very funny. Definitely reminds me of us. When we hang out off air. Very funny, random guy. Very opinionated, which is good. And like you said, his viewpoints. He's not a Ravens fan, so he's the biggest Peyton Manning fan you can have, which is pretty fun. So, Shimbley, your thoughts?
One, since you said about Peyton Manning, I was going to say, I don't know if you guys seen this or Peyton Manning lately, though, but if you check out his head next time when he plays football, it kind of reminds me of Timmy from South Park a little bit. But he great guy, funny guy. He told us a lot of good, quote-unquote, defecating stories, including Tech had one, which I was surprised that he would actually say on air.
Oh, yeah. Random.
That was too random, bro.
Wasn't my fault. It was the dad's fault.
Okay. But yeah, he's a funny guy, and that's it. I mean, can't wait to meet him.
Oh yeah, too. We do want to give shout out to, thank you for Century Queen. Shout out to Desert Storm, who everyone knows. If you don't get a chance, check out our interview with Desert Storm. Professionally, I don't really like the guy, but I will say personally, we do know that Desert Storm does deal with MS as well, multiple sclerosis. So we definitely, business-wise, don't mind supporting him and Jeremy Conn's wife, Mrs. Conn, and everyone else who tends to have it. I tend to know of a couple of people who has MS. It can be very painful. It can be very taxing as well. So shout out to everybody who has MS. Yes.
I just got breaking news. We want to send the condolences to the families of not only one half of the Fantastics, I forget his name.
Tommy Rogers.
Tommy Rogers, but also we send out the condolences to the family and friends of legend Chief Jay Strongbow, just passed away.
With Chief Jay Strongbow passing away, I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that is a hoax, because from what my remembrance, everything when I did details of it last night, it says he passed away 2012.
Oh, you did?
Yes, he passed away at the age of 83.
Big bot.
Yeah, so Chief Jay, no, it's fine. Chief Jay Strongbow, news of him passing away is a hoax. He passed away back in 2012, but yes, we do want to send our condolences to our good buddy Bobby Fulton, and to the family of Tommy Rogers, and also a lot of our friends who worked in the business who's worked with Tommy Rogers. He was found dead in his home in Honolulu, and the cause of death is unknown, and we just want to send our condolences to him. But with that being said, I believe... Say that again?
I'm suing that source that gave me that bad link.
Yeah, it's just all over. Yeah, I had a lot of people hit me up last night about Chief Jay Strongbow. I could be wrong, but from my recollection and from other people let me know, I believe he passed away a few years ago. But if it's not a hoax, condolences to the family of Chief Jay Strongbow, regardless. That being said, we're going to bring it right now, I believe, the man of the hour, current former WWE superstar, formerly known as Chris Masters, and current Global Force representative and superstar, Chris Modeski. Welcome, brother.
What's going on? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, my dude? How you living?
Yeah, how's it going?
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Now, did we say your name right? Is it Chris Modeski? Did we say it right?
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge for a lot of people to get, but it's Mordetsky, Chris the Adonis Mordetsky for Global Force. So, Mordetsky. Hopefully it won't be too hard for everybody.
That's fine. Is it fine if we call you Chris? What would you like for us to call you?
Masterpiece.
You can call me whatever you want, man. Whatever rolls off the tongue.
Oh,
cool.
Okay.
It's cool.
Okay.
Of course, this is the first full Under the Mat Radio. We've had a lot of legendary and great guests on the show. Of course, now we have you, Chris. You being the first representative, hopefully of many, of Global Force Wrestling. Thank you, and Global Force for providing you with your time today.
No problemo, brother.
If you don't mind, first of all, Chris, let us know Global Force Wrestling, the new biggest promotion that, of course, Jeff Jarrett has started. What was it about Global Force Wrestling that caught your eye and it made you want to be a part of it?
Well, I think some people remember just a few years ago I went along on board for the Ring King project, which Jeff Jarrett pretty much ran the whole thing, and it was my first encounter with Jeff. I don't think I'd even really met him before that, and we had all the odds against us, and it was just a very tough situation, but somehow Jeff, and it ran real smooth, and it ended up being an enjoyable experience in the middle of India and working with guys that had essentially never wrestled before. But I did have a takeaway from that, and I knew that Jeff was definitely a guy who knew what he was doing when it came to wrestling, and obviously he's got the track record going back to even TNA. So all those things obviously were very when Jeff did ring me, obviously looking back at those situations and all the previous experiences I had with him, it was kind of a no-brainer as to wanting to join the team.
All right. Thank you much. I'm going to turn it over to NFC Game Boy.
Well, Chris, first of all, I'm say once again, thank you for coming on. I got a chance to meet you last year when I went to WrestleMania 30 in St.
Was that nice?
Hold on. Excuse me. I got a chance to meet you at WrestleMania 30 last year. I think it was a Friday.
Was that nice to you?
Yeah, you were very nice to me, actually. So I'm sorry, I had something in my throat. My question to you is that with Global Force expanding the way that it is, what is some of the challenges that you think you're going to have to really deal with as a performer now, with getting back into a company that's really branching out internationally again, whereas before you were saying that the company was really working mostly in India? Hold on for a minute.
Are you talking about challenges for the company or myself personally?
Excuse me. I'm talking about yourself personally.
For me, this is perfect timing because right now I'm essentially in my prime. I have been over the last couple of years. I got my push when I was, essentially a kid. I was like 20 years old, and, it takes a while to really learn the ropes, so to speak, and to really learn the art of what we do and, the psychology of professional wrestling. And I'm at a point now where I'm comfortable in my skin, especially probably more so in the ring than anywhere else. And, I can go out there with pretty much anybody and, have, basically just go in there and have a good match with anyone down the card. But, in terms of what I'll be doing with Global Force, bring it on. I'm ready for this. I think we got a good crew of guys. I think there's a lot of guys there that I've worked with in the past that I know we can do some great work together. And then there's obviously quite a few guys that I haven't worked with that I look forward to getting in there and dancing with.
Well, I must say the work I saw you do last year while I was at that event, you were in great shape. It was a great match. It was very quickly. I think he was only in there for about 6-7 minutes, but I remember the match very vividly. Having a chance to talk with you afterwards, You looked it really good, man, and I can honestly say that I believe everything that you're saying as far as now is probably the right time. Everything feels right. You know, a lot of guys, they get a lot of ring rust. You know, they lose couple steps and everything. But, you know, from what I saw and what I've been hearing with us doing our research and stuff, man, I'm very excited for you. And here under the mat, we're very excited to hear that you're getting this opportunity to really go back out there and shine like you've been.
Yeah, since about 2011, I really started to make, just leaps and bounds in terms of progress, in terms of just my overall work, because it was always a critique of mine that I was just strictly a body, which, yeah, I'm a body, but, I never wanted to just be labeled or typecasted as that. And, I've had some of the best matches probably in my career over the last couple of years, internationally over in England against like Chris Travis and a few other great talents over there. So it's just a process, just like anything else, and repetition. And now look at me, now I'm over 10 years in the business. I mean, naturally, if you stick with something and you don't succumb to the fact that I have it figured out, and you constantly are learning and receptive, you're ultimately probably going to succeed if you apply yourself. And I feel like that's where I'm at now, and that's why I'm more than prepared for our Global Force Wrestling and to make an impact and show people who maybe haven't seen the new Chris Mordetsky or the former Chris Masters and see what I can do now.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
We'll turn over to Shin Blade. I'll let you correspond. I know, Shin, you have a lot of questions from the fans.
Actually, I got one from my assistant, Saltine. He wants to ask you about something that a lot of us enjoyed was the Master Lock Challenge. How did that come about, and who was the mastermind who made all of it up?
It was, I don't think it was any one person. I know Arn Anderson, I believe, might have had the suggestion for the full Nelson, but when people ask me this question, it's not just, you can't really just trace it back to me or the Master Lock. If you look at the time frame, it was we were at a time in pro wrestling where they were trying to take not even a couple steps, a few steps back, because they had gone so far in terms of, jumping off the top of 20-foot ladders and going through tables and just doing so many crazy things and guys getting hurt left and right. And, they started to realize that, we need to recondition the wrestling fans back to, not back to what it was in the 80s necessarily, but at least just to make wrestling count again, and it not necessarily have to be something so crazy and where guys are killing each other out there. Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of the mindset around that time, which ultimately, I didn't even have complete faith in the full Nelson just because it was so basic, but they really put a lot of steam behind it, and it caught on, and that could also be because of UFC. People started to really understand the legitimacy of holds and what they can do. So, and it's not to say that they didn't before, because there was always, even Ken Shamrock was doing the ankle lock, but there wasn't as many submission hold finishes, I think, as regular finishes probably.
All right. Go ahead, Shane.
Oh, another question that came in. I got it from a certain personality by the name of the Original Gada. And this question is, are you ever up to appearing for House of Hardcore?
Well, I already have, actually.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
I wrestled for House of Hardcore one time on the East Coast when they did it in Poughkeepsie, and then there was a House of Hardcore that was ran out here in California, actually, down near the San Diego area last year. So, they've had me on there a couple of times.
All right. Thank you for that. Any more questions?
Actually, she asked. Excuse me, I quoted it wrong. Do you have any plans on being part of a future House of Hardcore show?
Well, that's not my decision, obviously. Tommy Dreamer calls. I'm sure I would love to be part of House of Hardcore. They've always been, every time I go, it's special experience, and Tommy Dreamer obviously knows what he's doing, too, when it comes to pro wrestling. And I don't know. I think, he doesn't run like every month. I think he runs a few times a year, correct?
Well, yeah, they have a TV deal coming up, so I think it's going to be more frequently.
Oh yeah, well, so that's a certain genre of wrestling right there, and I think that working for House of Hardcore was awesome and everything, but I might not necessarily fit the genre, but Global Force is definitely a perfect fit.
Okay. Well, I have one more question, but I'm going to push it to the end part because it's more of a hilarious question. It's not a serious wrestling question. So.
Okay. I want to ask you, Chris, is that while being in the WWE, what was it like for you first arriving? What was some of the first things that you learned about working for what a lot of people say the big time finally with the Machine?
What was it like arriving, in terms of what facet specifically, like backstage or just going out on TV or what?
Both, both backstage and then also you going out on stage.
Really overwhelming because when I first entered, I was, I got signed at 19, so I was really young. And then I was also around, the whole generation before me, essentially, so it was all the guys basically that I'd grown up watching. So, there was a part of me that was obviously, still a fan or, but had obviously the utmost respect for those guys, but it was obviously very intimidating, having to now share a locker room with them and get to know them and all that, and also being as young as I was, so it was it was overwhelming in that aspect, but also it was just very cool at the same time because on the other hand, I was living out my dream. That's exactly where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing, and just the whole situation. When you're at that point and you're developing, you're finding out who you're going to be, and your theme, you hear your theme music for the first time, and it all becomes so real. It's just amazing. It's really, you can never really duplicate that again, obviously, at least for me, for a person in my situation, because, I've been there and been through that, and, but it was definitely amazing, and, I always look back at that, and I don't have any ill feelings towards the company or anything like that. They employed me pretty much off and on for 10 years, and, I had some of the best years of my life, the most challenging, too, but, I wouldn't have it any other way, and I'm still doing what I love to do, even beyond my run there, so, how can you really be that mad?
Right. What is the differences of you right now being in Global Force as a performer than who you were a few years ago in WWE?
Oh, I'm just a much more mature worker, just all around. I'm, like I said, I'm comfortable in my skin. I've peaked in terms of my ability. I'm from 2011 on, pretty much through now, I've had the best matches of my career. And, I think, like I said, just through just going through the process and, you know, just never being content with just being good enough and, you know, being persistent and continuing to do it has got me to a place where, you know, the person that they're going to see is still me, but it's obviously a much more matured performer and somebody who can go out there and really put on a 5-star if needed, or even just go out and entertain.
Right, that is good, and that definitely makes a lot of sense. And a lot of guys we had on on our show, a lot of guys tend to say the difference of them now than what they were when they started out younger is being a lot more mature and being a lot smarter in the business, even when it comes to working in the business, knowing instead of working so fast, know how to work a lot smarter.
Definitely. I mean, it you know, once you get around this point, it becomes so much more just understanding things mentally, you know, and it really becomes much more that, more so than anything else, and understanding, you know, the inner workings of what we do, obviously, without giving away too much. But you know, it's like I said, I mean, this is something that came along at the right time. You know, I don't want my peak years to go wasted, and I definitely think I have everything to offer Global Force Wrestling at this point. You know, especially now. I mean, it's just the time's right. You know, I'm right. I'm ready to go, and we got a good group. Let's do it.
All right. Thank you for that. Shambly, NFC Game Boy?
NFC Game Boy, you got one?
Yeah, I got a quick question. Why are you starting the business, Chris, at such a young age and really getting a chance to be engulfed with, you know, some of the veterans and some of the guys coming up? What is some of the advice you want to give to some of the indie guys who, you know, they do these toughen up videos, who's going around in different promotions and stuff all around the country, trying to make a name for themselves, trying to break through that glass ceiling? What is some tips that you might want to give that you didn't notice when you first started, but you now notice now that you've been in the business as long as you have?
Well, one thing I'll say is that for, like, you're saying specifically guys on the indies, I mean, you know, there's a lot of guys that can work really well, but I think if you're talking about making it to the next level or getting signed with a company, I think, you know, you beyond just being a good worker, I mean, you just kind of have to have something maybe that stands out, whether it be your gimmick or personality or anything, you know. Devitt is a good example of a guy I think who I believe got booked a lot more just because he painted, you know, he did the whole face painting thing. Prince Devitt did that whole deal. And that really, you know, it's just, so I mean, that's just an example, though, of something that can set you apart besides just your wrestling or, you know, I mean, or some guys, you know, obviously are just, you know, gifted with, you know, are 6'9" or over 300 pounds. I mean, that gives you a bit of an advantage. But, you know, for the most part, you know, either, you know, a gimmick that can connect with the crowd or, you know, something that can just really stand out about you.
Okay. Thanks. Shin, your question?
I have a question from a fan. It's a rather interesting question, you know, coming off of it, other than talking about wrestling. Well, it is still talking about wrestling, but they ask you, remember the time on TV, and I forget when this happened. I think it was like 2005. Remember when Maria Kanellis interviewed you on TV and called you the masturbator, Chris Masters?
Yeah.
Can you tell us that story?
Well, you know, I can't speak much to that, but I can say that Rob Van Dam still calls me that to this day. 10 years later, I don't think he's ever called me Chris or Masters or anything like that. He always calls me Masturbator. So him and a few others. There's a couple others that I can't come to mind right now, but yeah, there's about a handful of people that have stuck with that. You know, they love it. And then a couple others will say, call me Disaster Piece, MVP, Mickey James, like that one specifically.
Oh. Now, with your character, of course, in WWE being a masterpiece, talk about your character now. What are some of the similarities? What are the differences?
Well, basically, Chris the Adonis Mordetsky essentially is not much different from what you originally saw in my initial run in WWE. It's obviously I'm a guy who has confidence not only in the way I look in my body, but in my ability, and maybe a little too much confidence that might rub people the wrong way, but that's fine. You know, I'm comfortable with that. You know, not everybody is going to like somebody who comes out and says they're good, and but when you can back it up, you know, then what?
I never like that. Dude.
Actually, I have a question. I actually forgot this story, and I remember this very, very fondly. But there was a news outbreak of you saving your mother from a burning house.
Yes.
Yeah, she got barricaded inside of her house by the neighbor. Apparently gone crazy and thought that he was her son, and you know, essentially going into all the details of the story, I ended up having to rip a tree out of the ground so the cops could break open the windows to her window because he set a fire inside the house when they were trying to get the door down. And so basically, you know, I told them she was in that room. The tree was blocking the windows. I ripped the tree out. They broke one window. She wasn't there. They broke the other one. She popped up out of nowhere. I scooped her out and I pulled her out of the scene. And, you know, she could have died. I mean, they got the door down and there was so much smoke burrowing that they couldn't go in through the front door. So that's why we had to come up with that last-second plan.
Well, we're glad that your mom is okay. We're glad that you was able to save her from that.
Is that not the great thing to say? Like, I actually literally saved my mom from a burning home. You know, like what? That's just ridiculous. I still think about it to this day. I'm just like, I can't even believe that happened.
Well, we're glad that she still is with us and still with you. I remember when that news story broke and it was all over the news and people were talking about it. Even people that didn't watch wrestling and had an idea of, you know, what you did in WWE was letting me know. It was like some dude from WWE saved his mom. I'm like, who? Chris somebody. It was like, oh, Chris Masters. And you know, a lot of people was giving praises online for you doing that. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, you know, obviously that wasn't the intention, but I won't say that I had any problem with it the next day when everybody was calling me. I was like, oh, yeah, that's what happened.
Well, it was really great that you actually did that. Now, I think we skipped a little small subject in the question. Now, you got signed at an early age, but also you have been in this merely almost the same shape that you were when you first started. I remember the tapes. What led you to get into bodybuilding at an early age?
I never actually competed in bodybuilding. What I did is when I first initially started training at 16, I got injured about 2 months in. I fractured my ankle, so I had to have surgery on it. But in that 2 months, I was able to already see what they were looking at because I had started with John Cena. So him and another guy who were training over there, another guy named Basil, who was really built, were both being looked at heavily by WWE. So after my injury, I just kind of went back to the drawing board, and I decided not to continue training for wrestling at that age because I was a little too young. And I focused, I took on bodybuilding more as a hobby, essentially just to get in, you know, to have an advantage towards wrestling. And I figured, you know, I was, 6'4", I needed to develop anyway. I mean, I had never really worked out, and I didn't, for whatever reason, it hadn't dawned on me the importance of that going into pro wrestling if I was going to take it serious. So, I focused on that for a couple of years and then ended up coming back at 19, and that's when everything got started.
Okay. Well, I remember you fondly in WWE. You were the Masterpiece, and I remember you were out because of a wellness violation that the WWE had and everything. And one of the things that I noticed that I didn't take too kindly was when you came back, you were of a slimmer size. And I remember you were in bits with Triple H and Shawn Michaels in DX where I forget. I know one of them you tried to attack Shawn Michaels in the toilet or Triple H in the toilet, and the result is that your character was beat up. But another one, I remember Triple H burying you on TV talking about your shrinkage in size. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I think a lot of people ask me about that, like that particular scenario, and my answer is always kind of like if you've ever seen Sean and Hunter with each other actually interacting. I mean, Hunter's just kind of more of a ball buster than anything else. I mean, could he have been out of line at that particular time? Sure, maybe, but it's not like Hunter necessarily targets anybody. I mean, he would rip on HBK. I mean, just look at his induction speech for Shawn Michaels at the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? I mean, he gave him his praise, but, we also busted his balls half the time. I mean, the guy's just a ball buster. I mean, you can take that for what you will, and people get angry and say it was unfair or whatever. Like I said, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but, I just kind of, at this point, I just look at it like, that's just kind of, how he is, and, if it wasn't me, it'd be somebody else, or it could have just as easily been Sean.
And this a Game Boy?
Well, I want to ask now, with you being involved as much with the business in the last 10 years or so, who you can say really gave you the most impactful advice? Somebody who probably pulled you to the side, probably in a car or something, or just gave you some real inspirational advice that really helped shape you to where you at right now? Any wrestlers, managers,
I can definitely say, there's a few people. Arn Anderson, CM Punk, Shawn Michaels, even Hunter, even. Those were all guys that were, praising me. Shawn definitely early in my career, just because he was, I got to work the program with him, and and I was able to really learn a lot just through working with a guy at that caliber. You know what I mean? Obviously, and then just Arn and Punk, and even Hunter within my last year or so, recognizing just how far along I had come in terms of what I was producing in the ring. So, quite a few.
Okay.
All right. Well. Also, Chris, we have another correspondent by the name of Toph. He has a couple questions to ask you. Toph?
Hey. Hey, Chris. Hey. Nice to speak to you. I got a couple of questions for you. When I was in college, in my dorm, I didn't have basic cable Raw, and so I couldn't watch Raw or anything else. But I did have WGN, so I used to watch the Superstars show. And I remember you were on that show quite often. You even had an undefeated streak for a while. And I remember watching your matches, and you had improved quite a bit. I remember when you first came, they kind of built you more as a muscle guy, but you changed your move set up a lot, and you were doing a lot of high-flying moves, and it really seemed to me like you kind of reinvented your style. And just when it seemed like they were going to do something with you, they released you. And at the time, I was just kind of confused on why they did that. My question for you is, my first question is, when you were working all of those superstars matches, if you remember, was there like a plan they told you? Did they tell you like, you know, we want you to work X amount of tapings and see how it goes? I mean, did they tell you that it was going to lead up to something, or was it just one of those things, you know, where they really weren't sure what they were doing with you?
No, but well, this is the thing. You bring up exactly what I was referring to. That it was a double-edged sword that whole time frame, because on one hand I was on Superstars, but on the other hand I was getting time in matches and I was progressing and just making such huge strides as far as my work, because on Superstars more times than not I was given 2 segments or 15 minutes and whatnot to go. So and it got to the point where that's where they really started acknowledging what I was producing in the ring, and specifically Hunter. And at one point there was a plan to, as they said, either repackage me or a fresh coat of paint is the words they used. And it just never came to fruition. So I mean, but I don't look back at the time on Superstars completely negative, just because in that year, if you watch that, basically you can see the progression of, where I really just started to get it and become, a really good in-ring performer. And it was just through that time I was able to. But, for whatever reason, whether it being just I was booked badly for too long, or maybe I just need to disappear. Obviously, that fresh coat of paint never happened. But, I was definitely ready for it at that point, which is what brings me back to what we were speaking about earlier, about why is this a good time for me to be involved with a promotion such as like Global Force, because, because I've been ready since then. Since that was 2011. Now it's 2015. I mean, if this is the time I'm ready. I've been ready. So, this is definitely going to be an adventure that I'm ready to make an impact with, and show people just exactly everything that you were just speaking about. Just, who I am now in comparison to who I was then.
Okay. Well, my next question is about Shawn Michaels. It's come to my understanding that you idolized him growing up, and he was one of your favorite wrestlers. Not many people in the business get to meet their favorite wrestler, much less actually wrestle them on pay-per-view. Could you describe to the listeners what it was like to actually wrestle your favorite wrestler ever? Like, what was that like? Was it like you were a kid again?
Well, the one thing I'll say is this, is I was scared about the pay-per-view match, just because I knew, I was like, I don't want to be the only guy in history to have a bad match with, Shawn Michaels, essentially, like you said, my idol, on pay-per-view, so I wanted to just make sure that no matter what, I came through that day and that we had a good match. And, but, I mean, it was like a dream come true, and on the pay-per-view, I got to work him a lot more just on house shows all over the world. So I was able to have a lot of those moments that you're talking about. It just wasn't necessarily, even on pay-per-view, you know what I mean? Even on pay-per-view, but, obviously the stakes are so high there. But I can remember times being overseas and just, making my entrance and waiting in the ring, and then hearing his music hit and the way the crowd would erupt, and having a moment of almost out-of-body experience, the 5-year-old version of me looking down, or the 10-year-old version of me looking down and just being like, wow, this is crazy, like almost wanting to jump up and cheer myself.
Okay. My next question is, John Cena once said in the interview that you were the strongest person he's ever been in the ring with. I think you two had an arm wrestling match at some point, and he said that you were very strong, and I found that very interesting, because he's been in the ring with guys like Cesaro and Mark Henry, who legitimately won an award for being the world's strongest man. So for him to say that you are the strongest person he's been in the ring with, how does that make you feel as a performer?
Well, It's funny coming from Cena, just because I know how strong Cena is. I mean, the guy's literally immune when it comes to strength training. So, I'm flattered by him saying that, and I mean, I guess maybe the ripping the tree out of the ground does support his argument, but I can't really say if I was the strongest guy that he ever worked for sure or not, but I definitely appreciate him saying that, and if anybody knows Cena, I mean, they know that that coming from him is incredible, because I mean, he is just, when it comes to the weight room, he's ridiculous. The guy is just unreal.
Okay, well, my last question is, right now you're part of Global Force Wrestling, and I was looking at the roster earlier today, and I see they've added a lot more new additions. Right now, at the current roster, who are you most looking forward to work with? I think you and Moose could have a good match, but what are you looking forward to right now?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of guys I have worked on there that I'm looking forward to working again, being like... Gallows and Lance Hoyt. But, and one guy in particular I'm looking forward, if I get a chance to work with him, it'd be great, is Harry Smith, just because I worked him back when he first entered WWE, and none of our matches were anything to write home about. And, but, I mean, he's just come along... So we both come along so much as performers, and just watching some of his work over the last couple of years outside of WWE is just unbelievably gifted and just smooth about the way he works, and it just makes you really wonder, like, what can we do now? Maybe we back then, but now is now, and we're at where we're at. And so, I mean, just looking at the whole roster, top to bottom, I mean, I just think that it's a well-constructed roster, and there's a lot of great talent and a lot of people I'd love to get in there and dance with.
Oh, okay, those are all my questions. Thanks for talking to us, Chris.
No problem.
All right, Chris, I do have I have two questions from fans, but one is a small question. And they ask, are you still going to work for Preston City Wrestling? He heard you're the champ the last time he's been there.
Definitely. I'm definitely working for Preston City Wrestling, and I am the current champion back in July, actually, to defend the title, and a big tribute to the Troops show, and I should be out there in August too. So I mean, I've been working there the last 3 years. It's a great promotion that's growing, and nothing but good things to say about Preston. They've been very good to me.
Okay, the next question is coming from at least about 5 fans. What are your thoughts on CM Punk?
I'm sorry, I lost you. Can you say it one more time?
The question from North, what are your thoughts about CM Punk?
What are my thoughts? Just about CM Punk, nothing specifically?
Like working with him, being backstage, or just generally?
Well, for me, I have a lot of appreciation for CM Punk, just because he would, I think I noted earlier, he was one of those guys in those couple of years where I was, just treading water on superstars, that was encouraging me and acknowledging kind of the work I've been putting in, and how much I was evolving as an in-ring performer. So I have nothing negative to say. He's always been. I've always enjoyed his work and watching him, and I think, and I appreciated the fact that he gave me the acknowledgement that he did, and I've never had any kind of qualms with him at all.
Okay. NXT Game Boy.
Well, I have two questions. The first one is a wrestling question, and the second one is a personal. My first question to you now, Chris, is about your thoughts for Vince McMahon. How did you feel about being around the company, and how did you feel when you finally left the company? What are your thoughts of Vince McMahon?
My thoughts of Vince McMahon, or my thoughts of being in the company and outside of the company?
Well, your thoughts of being, of Vince McMahon while you was in the company and when you left. Like, did he treat you differently? Did y'all leave on good terms? Did you think it was bad terms?
I don't think it was bad terms or anything like that. I mean, he was just, he wasn't as engaged the last couple of years I was there of anything as much as when I first arrived. I mean, Hunter and Stephanie were doing most of the stuff that Vince was doing when I initially arrived there. But when I think of Vince McMahon, I think of he's definitely a ruthless businessman, but also a complete alpha male. That's just the best way I can describe him. Is he's like the supreme alpha male, and that's what he identifies with.
Okay, and my second question to you is, we now know that you're part of Global Force. We know about the roster and everything, and we know that you're going to be great in this new promotion that Jeff Jarrett is putting so much into. My question to you is, after Global Force, after the wrestling ring, after when you take off the shoes and you finally sit back and look back at your career, is there something else that you've wanted to do, or another passion of yours that you wanted to probably tap into or get a chance to do, maybe in your later years, or
No, that's a good question. I like that. That's a good question. That's something I'm in search for now. I love pro wrestling, and I know that it's always going to be my number one passion. I mean, that's why I pursued it. I always feel like regardless of money or whatnot, when you pursue your passion, you're never going to work a day again, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously I pursued my passion, but, it does leave me thinking at 32 years of age, is there anything else that I'm also passionate about that maybe I haven't tapped into that is still realistic at this point in my life? And, politics is something I've always been very kind of interested in. I've read a lot of books. I follow the 24-hour news cycle and all that stuff, and I'm very opinionated on all that stuff. So, I mean, I could see it be something I'm interested in, but I don't know if realistically I would actually go through with it, just because of, just the kind of... It kind of seems like it would be everything WWE was without the performing in the ring, which, just a lot of, which would be no fun. It's all, jockeying for positioning and, trying to get ahead and whatnot. And, it's not about really trying to make change necessarily, or, being able to do what you want to do or what you'd like to do. But it's always fascinated me.
Well, let me just say to you that I'm about to be 34 this year, and I still really haven't found my niche. Of course, I'm part of Under the Mat, which this radio show, and we've been around for a year and a half. We're an award-winning show and everything. But I always try to tell fans who ask me, is there anything else you want to do and stuff? I say follow your heart, and if it's something that you believe that you can do, then do it, and do it right. If you got to go to school for it, or you got to go to training for it and everything. And I would love to see you in the ring, but I also hope that you find that other passion, because a lot of times the pursuit of happiness outside of what you already do can be just as fulfilling. So.
Right.
I just want to leave you with that.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I mean, that's a real question right there. It's definitely something that I think about.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, and that's how we do here, Chris. We tend to ask a lot of questions. We always try to ask different questions from the rest. We don't want to be boring going through the timeline of favorite wrestler and first match in history. Always try to do things differently.
Mhm.
Actually, I have another question for you. We just talked about Mr. Man, and this fan by the name of Chris Stark said Mac wanted you to emulate Paul Orndorff. Have you ever met Mr. Wonderful? And if so, what was the interaction like?
Yeah, he worked with me WrestleMania, the one that was out here in LA. He spent the week out here, and he worked with me in the ring. They were really trying to get him to install, his aggressiveness and, just really kind of help kind of tutor me. And, it's hard to say because it feels like it was a lifetime ago, man. But, he was, he was a very stern dude. I remember that. But, we worked together for about 3 days. And I just remember, I was just so green at that point that I think whatever he was trying to convey to me, I probably wasn't even ready for, at that point. So, it was just too much, too quick, probably. But he was a pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
That was obviously amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I do have this question for you. I've seen the recent pictures when you work in the indie scene, and one thing I have a fascination for, but it's not shown to many people, is tattoos. And you have this one tattoo, I think on your right arm or left arm. What is that, pray tell? I couldn't get a good look when I saw the picture.
It's like a robotic arm. If you get a good look on it, you can probably find it on Google or something. But basically, it's almost kind of like a Terminator type thing. But the veins in my forearms are laced over the machinery, and I always like forearm tattoos. I got one on my right tattoo when I was 19, and then you have this one, and it was unique. I hadn't seen anybody with it, so I pulled the trigger.
All right. One last question, Chris, before we let you go. Speaking of tattoos, what would you say would be the top 3, some of your favorite tattoos of all the boys that you wrestled?
Favorite tattoos on other wrestlers? I always thought Shelton Benjamin's were really cool just because I couldn't really make them out. But
I thought you were gonna say R-Truth.
Yeah.
He's gonna get mad at me for that one. I think Orton's took some getting used to, but they look kind of cool. They're kind of like the Bison thing, Bison from Street Fighter kind of look thing, and other tattoos. I don't know. I can't really. There's no one really coming to mind. I love CM Punk, but I'm not a big fan of the Pepsi tattoos. So.
You more of a Coke guy?
Yeah, I'd go for the Coke tattoo.
Okay. All right.
Speaking of Street Fighter, Chris, I'm gonna turn over to NSC Game Boy. He's a professional gamer, and NSC Game Boy let you ask Chris real quick some questions about Street Fighter. Video games.
Just 2 questions. First of all, in the game of Street Fighter, which version was your favorite? If you like Street Fighter 2, the Championship Edition, Turbo, whatever, Street Fighter 3, 4, or the Marvel series, and of course, what was your favorite Street Fighter character to use?
Well, honestly, man, I'm more of a Mortal Kombat guy.
All right.
Okay.
Let's switch it up. Is that such a thing? Is that such a thing? Is that such a thing? Is it like you're either a Street Fighter guy or a Mortal Kombat guy, or can you be both, or how does that work?
Well, some people like Mortal Kombat, some people like Street Fighter, some people like Tekken. Some people it's whatever you like. It all depends on you.
Yeah, I mean, Street Fighter was cool and everything, but Mortal Kombat always. If I was to go to one of the fighting games, it would be Mortal Kombat. I mean, who can beat Raiden? I mean, Raiden would kill everybody.
There you go. This is one of my favorites too. It is a such thing, Chris, of kind of like Raw versus SmackDown, ECW. People have their own factions within games. I'm a Tekken guy, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. Am I missing out any Soul Calibur?
Oh well, like Lakers Clippers. You know what I mean? You can't be a Lakers fan and a Clippers fan. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was hoping the Clippers were going to lose. I wasn't cheering them on. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. Are you more of a Lakers
fan? I think
fan?
the same thing applies with the Yankees.
Yeah, Yankees and Mets.
Wow.
We all remember that Subway series when the Yankees swept the Mets. It wasn't even a series, really.
But I just to let you guys know, I think I got another interview at the top of the hour here. So if we can, if you guys don't mind.
Oh yeah,
we can wrap it up anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, we can go ahead and wrap it up.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah,
anything
appreciate you having me on. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Anything you want to promote before we let you go?
Well, obviously just what we've been talking about. Global Force Wrestling is basically coming, and we've got dates. Obviously, June 12th, it's kicking off in Jackson, Tennessee. June 13th, Knoxville. June 20th, and in Jackson, Mississippi. June 21st in Bowling. I mean, obviously, you might want to go to on Twitter and go to Global Force Wrestling, and you can get all the details and information. And you can follow me at Chris Masters 310, and I'll be letting you know what's going on with me, Global Force Wrestling, Preston City Wrestling, or any other wrestling that I'm doing.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks much, Chris, for that. Look forward to having you on again soon. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Take care, man. Thank you.
Hey, right, that was Chris, the Adonis Modeski, representing Global Force. Toph, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, your quick thoughts on interviewing the masterpiece, the Adonis.
Oh, he's cool. I know he was good friends with Randy, and I saw a YouTube video of those two just talking, shooting the breeze like 3-4 years ago, and he just always seemed like a friendly guy, and I think he was a good wrestler that just didn't get a fair shot after he improved, and it was cool talking to him, and I hope he's able to do well in Global Force. Maybe Jarrett can focus the promotion around him or Moose. Those are the two that I think Jarrett can turn into stars and basically make WWE look at him and be like, oh, we really dropped the ball on this guy.
You go NFC Game Boy?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. It was a great interview, and, I enjoyed myself.
Shin.
Yes.
Your thoughts, real quick, on the masterpiece.
Well, funny guy. Nice guy to talk to. I agree with Toph though, but I don't think WWE dropped on Moose. I just think Moose has opted for a better future. I mean, one thing I liked about Chris Masters was his entrance music that he came out to, his entrance. And then somebody in WWE screwed it off with the rock thing in this year. So I remember Joey Styles who used to tell people you had to be very, very silent during his entrance and everything. So I did respect him a lot when he said the too much too soon. Just like Tony Atlas' book, because he was pushed so heavily when he first came out. When he was in that DLC battle at WrestleMania 21, he was pushed to the point where he was supposed to win it, but it ended up being won by Booker T. And people are sending me questions.
Well, hopefully, we definitely will get Chris the masterpiece.
Before we go, there's one person we need to interview, and his name escapes me right now. This was during the time when I wasn't watching WWE. You guys might know him. This was like 2003, 2004. It was like a French-Canadian tag team.
La Resistance.
La Resistance. Yeah, one of the members was like to this day he's like the youngest guy ever signed. He was like the youngest champion. I think
that was Rene Dupree.
Yeah, him. We need to find him. I know he's like the youngest.
No.
He was like the youngest champion ever to this day, and I know he had a lot of like backstage heat for that. And I've always wanted to hear his side of it. I don't know what he's doing these days, but we should interview him if we can find him someday.
Well, I'll let you know real quick. Rene Dupree, I spoke to him off air. He wants money and be compensated for interviews. So he's in Japan wrestling for other promotions and Loving Dogs and whatnot. Speaking of La Resistance, coming up on Under the Mat Radio on June the 16th, we will have former member of La Resistance, former WWE superstar, and former two-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion Rob Conway, the Iron Man, will be joining us. Also that date, we will have legendary boxer Larry Holmes will be joining us at that date as well. Next week, June the 9th, we will have that episode titled King of Old School. We will have ECW legend and also former NWA champion Steve Corino will be joining us. Time is very short. Love you all much, fans. We will talk to you all next week.
And Kobe Corino.
Random shout-outs, Toph, #.
Yeah, shout-outs to my future baby mama, Candace.